Welcome to the 16th episode of the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Meg Gardiner, crime novelist. Meg's latest novel, The Memory Collector, is in hardback now and available at your local bookstore. This interview was recorded at Thriller Fest in New York City in July. Also, if you're an author or writer interested in promoting and marketing your book, you should check out my new podcast at bookmarketingpodcast.com. Thanks, and the interview with Meg Gardiner is right ahead.
This is Lee Child, and I'm listening to the Reading and Writing Podcast.
So I'm here at Thriller Fest, and I'm interviewing Meg Gardiner, the author of two crime suspense series. One series featuring Joe Beckett, a forensic psychiatrist, and the other series featuring Evan Delaney, a freelance journalist. Meg, welcome to the Reading and Writing Podcast.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I'm glad to be taking part.
Sure. So the first question I have, do you have to give Stephen King a slice of every royalty check?
No, I don't. Stephen King was extremely generous, and it was all unsolicited. He praised my novels before I even had a publisher in the U.S. He encouraged people to read my books. I didn't kidnap his dog. He doesn't owe me money. He was just extremely generous, and he likes to help other authors out, and I can't thank him enough. Yeah.
So of course I was just joking, but can you give a little bit of the backstory behind, the whole Stephen King rave and how you at that point were only published in the UK?
Sure. I'm a Californian, but my husband's job took us to live in the UK a few years ago, and I started writing novels. That was the first chance. I had all my kids out of diapers. I didn't have to go into the office. I used to practice law, and I taught at the University of California, but I had some time, and I thought I'd better put up or shut up and write this novel I've always been talking about. So I wrote a crime novel, and my agent in the UK said, well, you're an American. I'm sure that you'll get a U.S. publisher for this, and I'll see if we can get you published in the UK. In fact, I was offered a British contract very quickly, and then a French contract for translation, and a Dutch contract, Portuguese, Hebrew, Russian, and the American publishers initially said no thanks, which I couldn't really complain because I had books on the shelf in Britain, and they were being exported to Australia and South Africa and Canada and every place else, except all my relatives back home in California were like, oh, sure, honey, we know you write books. Of course we believe you. And they would kind of make a circling motion with their fingers next to their temple. They didn't actually think that this was actually happening. And so then I wrote a sequel to the first book I had published was China Lake, which is the first book in the Evan Delaney series. I wrote the sequel, Mission Canyon, and my agent said, oh, I'm sure this one will be published in the United States. But American publishers said, well, it was the second in a series. We don't see any reason to pick up a series in midstream, so come back to us another time. We came back to them with a later book in the series, and they said, well, we didn't publish the first two. Why would we want to publish any later ones in the series? So this went on for like 4 books.
And these books are set in the U.S., I should have.
Yeah, sorry, they're set in Southern California. The Evan Delaney series is set in Santa Barbara, all about this great but very eccentric place where I grew up. I love it, and it's full of characters, full of great stories. But American publishers, I don't know whether they thought I was British and trying to write about California or what it was. But after I think the 4th book was published, it was just by happenstance Stephen King was coming to London on a book tour for Lizzie's story, and he picked up a book to read on the flight, and I wish I could say that he picked up one of my books and read the first paragraph and thought, oh my God, this prose is so beautiful, I have to read this. In fact, he picked it up and opened it up and thought, this print size is nice and big and easy on the eyes for a long plane trip. So that is why he took my book with him on the plane, and he read the whole thing on the plane, and he enjoyed it and got there to London. We have the same British publisher, so they of course gave him more books in the series, and he read them and he liked them, bless him. And he found out that I didn't have an American publisher, and he wrote a piece for his website encouraging people to read my books, which was amazing. And then, to my great shock but utter delight, he wrote a column for Entertainment Weekly telling people that they should search out my books and
when did you first hear about that?
I heard about that when Entertainment Weekly emailed me and said we need to do a fact check on this column, and I said, okay, I'll help you out however I can. And strangely enough, within about 48 hours of that column being published. 14 American publishers decided they'd take a look at my stuff.
Maybe we'll take another look.
And a couple of weeks later, I did have an offer from Dutton in the U.S. to publish my books, and that's what they've done extremely well. And I'm just thrilled, and I can't thank Stephen King enough.
And have you ever traded emails or had any kind of conversation with him?
Yeah, I met him when he came to London that time, and he's just an awfully nice guy. I mean, everybody says, is he creepy? No, he's generous. He's funny. He's very outgoing, and it was a real treat to meet him because he's one of my favorite authors.
And it's amazing to me from everything interviews that I've read with him that despite the amount that he writes, he's still just an amazing reader.
Yeah,
he loves it.
He loves it. So he's in the right business.
And there's oftentimes, because as I said, I live in Massachusetts, and there's oftentimes just a routine photo of him at Fenway Park, and he takes a book with him. So they oftentimes photograph him, during the seventh inning stretch, and he's like
stretching.
reading.
Yes, of course he is. That's great.
So you have a brand new book out in hardback, The Memory Collector, which has just been published, and I wondered if you could talk about that, what the book is about.
The Memory Collector is a thriller set in San Francisco. It features forensic psychiatrist Joe Beckett, who you mentioned earlier. Joe performs psychological autopsies when the police and the medical examiner can't figure out why a victim has died. Joe is the one who has to dig through the person's emotional history, explain their state of mind, and find out whether a death was natural, accidental, suicide, or homicide. In this case, she has a very unusual victim because he's alive. Most of her cases, the people are dead. She has a man who has short-term memory loss. His name is Ian Kanan. He has suffered some sort of a head injury. Doesn't know whether it was a blow to the head, whether he was poisoned, what's gone on, but he can no longer form new memories. He has anterograde amnesia, which means that everything up until the injury, his memory is perfect. He remembers his life, he knows everything about himself, his personality, his intelligence is unchanged, but he can no longer form new memories. Every 5 minutes, all the information that he's collected simply fades out. This is a real condition. It's devastating. People don't even realize that they are forgetful. They can only hold in their head, though, about 5 minutes worth of information before it all just evaporates. So Kanan comes in on a flight to San Francisco from London and Southern Africa, and he's gone berserk on the flight. The police ask Joe to come and help talk him off the plane. She quickly realizes that he's not a psychiatric patient, but he has this head injury, and that something bizarre has destroyed his memory. He disappears from the hospital, and she has to find him, and she has to find him quickly because it turns out that he is a former mercenary. He's a security contractor. He may have been involved in a heist of some very dangerous substances from a nanotechnology lab, and that this might have caused his injury. And worse than that, he seems to be going out to hunt down the people who were responsible for his amnesia, and other people who were on the flight with him begin to show the same symptoms of memory loss. So Joe has to find him before this contagion spreads, before other people start showing the symptoms, or it becomes an epidemic in San Francisco.
Great. And again, the name of that is The Memory Collector, and it's in bookstores now and hardback.
It is, yes.
And I know you taught writing, as you mentioned earlier, at the University of California, Santa Barbara, before you moved to London or to the UK. And I wondered, first, what's your writing process like? Do you tend to outline? Do you just kind of see where the story takes you? And then also I wondered, second to that, what kind of basic advice that you give to aspiring writers?
I taught at the University of California. I actually taught legal research and writing.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Because I was originally a lawyer, and it was great fun. I loved it. I was intending eventually, if I'd stayed at the University of California, to sort of see if I could segue into creative writing. But I got going with my own writing first. Actually, the department may still be expecting me to turn in that legal monograph that I talked about many years ago. But with my own writing, I do outline. I'm not obsessive about it. I know some writers can outline everything, every single scene from beginning to end. Others, love to just sit down and start typing and see where it goes. I have to outline because I tried it the other way. I tried it without outlining, and I found myself so far up some dismal little obscure creek without a paddle or any way to get back that I realized I needed to have some guideposts. So I try to come up first with an idea. I've got a character, in this case, the new book, I've got Joe Beckett. So I know it's going to involve some medical, legal, psychiatric issues. I decided I needed some kind of an idea, some kind of overarching idea that I could hang a plot on. And then memory was the one that struck me as I was doing some reading and interviewing people. And then I just kind of, spend a month or so writing notes and running around and just letting myself brainstorm. And then I sit down and I try to write an outline that at least goes from A to Z and maybe has two or three signposts along the way, major turning points. And then if you try to overplot, I find it makes the writing a little bit stale. But if you know the big places you need to get to, then you can find your way and have it be a lot of fun and develop as you go.
Great. I wonder, as a female writer, writing suspenseful, engaging thrillers, have you ever sensed any type of boys' club in the thriller genre or any type of feedback along those lines, just in terms of gender?
Never, actually, certainly not in the United States. Women are very successful thriller writers. I got into this because I love to read thrillers, and I had read men and women authors. I don't think it had ever really occurred to me to count whether I was reading more men or women, and I look at my bookshelf and it seems to be about 50-50.
50-50.
And certainly crime writers and thriller writers are really collegiate folks. Everybody's really nice, and everybody's been really welcoming. Editors have been very encouraging. I know in some other countries they say, do readers read women who write thrillers? We need to have the guy who knows how to handle a big gun. And that is not the case at all in the United States, certainly. And so I just go for it.
Great. Who are some of the writers that you read that kind of inspire you?
Somebody came in and asked what they would.
I'll go on all day if you let me. Let's see. I love to read Elmore Leonard. He's just a master of dialogue and plot and character, and just surprising you until you can't put it down. I love the women who got me into reading crime, again, Sue Grafton, obviously. Tess Gerritsen, Janet Ivanovich. I love Carl Hyacin because I realized when I read Stormy Weather that, if you have enough nerve and you can put a monkey and an ex-governor in the swamp, then you can get away with anything in a crime novel. I love Harlan Coben, Greg Iles, Michael Connolly.
Sure. James Lee Burke. Yes, exactly.
Thank goodness Dave Robichaux is fictional, because otherwise I'd probably have run away and started trying to find him.
Yeah, Robichaux's great.
Yeah.
And Cleet Purcell.
Cleet's my husband's favorite character. You will not believe what Cleet is up to. He's like the ne'er-do-well brother that you just keep getting messages from your family. Yeah.
Exactly. My mind just went blank. Thankfully, I can edit. I know what I was going to ask. I wonder if you spend a lot of time thinking about kind of the business of publishing, because there's been a lot of news coverage lately of the rise of ebooks and how that might impact the publishing industry, at large. And I wondered if you give much thought to that and where you think that's headed.
I do give thought to the business of publishing because I'm extremely fortunate to be able to make a living selling my writing, which means I need to always keep that in mind. I know ebooks are coming, they're here, they're going to get bigger, and I try to look at what I do not as putting words on paper, but as telling a story. And if I look at it that way, then it doesn't matter to me so much whether it's hardback, paperback, a Kindle, or an audiobook. I have to be grateful to readers in whatever form they read my books, and I'm all for going forward with ebooks, digital rights, everything. We've got to look for how do people want to imbibe what we're writing and get it to them in a way that they want to have it. Really, that's the most important thing, because connecting with the audience is everything.
Great. Well, again, I'm talking to Meg Gardiner, and her latest book, The Memory Collector, is in bookstores now. Check it out. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Thanks for listening to my latest interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to leave me some feedback about the podcast, you can leave a voicemail on my Google voicemail line, and I can feature your comment in a future podcast. You can simply call 413-84-BOOKS. That's 413-84-BOOKS. Or it's 413-842-6657. Again, that's 413-842-6657. Also, if you enjoyed listening to the podcast, I would love to get a review in iTunes so that more people could find the podcast in the iTunes store. It's very simple. Go to the podcast in the iTunes store and just leave a review or a comment. Thanks a lot, and we'll be back soon with another interview with a writer that you enjoy reading.
This is Meg Gardiner. When I'm not working on my latest book, I'm listening to the Reading and Writing Podcast.
We can sum up McDonald's new crispy chicken sandwich in one word: crispy. But also juicy and tender. Maybe crispy, juicy, tender, all one word? Okay, fine. You'll just have to try our crispy chicken sandwich to understand it.
Get a free medium fries and medium soft drink with purchase of any crispy chicken sandwich. Available only on the app.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Price and participation may vary. McDonald's app download and registration required.